Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our session. We sort of had a little bit of a bonus round up here. We were just chatting about the GDPR. Hey, so cool. And then we look up and, oh my goodness, you're all here. So thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We are sort of doing part two. Last year we had a session entitled the exact same thing, IT operations. We focused on a few key areas that our schools have encountered, and apparently your schools had encountered as well. And if you were here last year, you'll remember we pretty much deviated from what we had planned and had a very good heart-to-heart session about certain services and just certain practices that we have in IT in law schools. So this year we would like to do something a bit more organized again around 4 different areas. So if you saw our description online, you know what it is we are going to attempt to hit today as far as topics. But as always, if you have any questions or you would like us to try to talk about something down a very small rabbit trail, feel free. Raise your hand and we will accommodate as best we can. We are very aware that we are being recorded right now, so said heart-to-heart can only go so far. But if you would like to catch us in a hotel lobby and have a bit more of a heart-to-heart on the nitty-gritty of what's going on, we can negotiate. Hashtag law school, hashtag FTC disclosures, etc. I'm going to leave this slide up. This is our group for this year. This is our contact information. You can also absolutely reach out to any of us if you have any questions after this presentation. So without further ado, I would like to ask my co-presenters / panelists to introduce themselves briefly. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, about your school, and kind of what you do there, and then a little bit about your IT profile. So, Corinne, we'll start with you.
We should have sat in the order of our logos.
Close enough.
All right. I'm Corinne Meingarten. I'm the Systems Administrator for the Faculty of Law at Western University. We're up in Canada, near Toronto, so we're not in Western Canada, and we're not even in Western Ontario, but we're Western University. Marketing. I've been there since 2010. It was pretty much the first job I had out of university. It's been interesting. I am the sole IT person for the faculty. We have about 520 students, 50 full-time faculty, 20 staff, and 12 classrooms. And I run, coordinate, or support all of it. And everything else comes from Central IT.
Awesome. Thank you. John.
Hi, I'm John Sibray. I'm the IT director for the University of Colorado Law School in Boulder, Colorado. And I've been there since 2012, and I've been in higher ed IT since 1998. I started when I was about 5. Our school has about 550 students, 40 to 50 faculty, and a number of adjuncts. And pretty much if it plugs in the wall or takes batteries, chances are it's something the IT shop works with.
Awesome. Thank you. Tony.
My name is Tony Forseythe. I'm the CEO at Appointlink in St. Louis. We have about 50 law school clients. We have our SeatGen product, I think is probably the most popular, and we have also a MyLaw product and some things like that. I've been doing this I've been coding since I was probably 14, so a long, long time. Love to code, love to hear about these different challenges and problems out there, so this is fun for me.
Awesome. And I'm Corinne St Claire. I'm the Director of Law School Technology Services at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. We are part of LMU, Loyola Marymount University. We have approximately, what was our FTE? Somewhere around 900 students. I have 22 classrooms on my campus. I have I think 200 full-time faculty. HR is totally going to get on my case about that. Very many adjunct professors, and we are recently merged with IT as far as our main campus IT, so we've been through a bit of a transition, and by recently that is like 2 years, so that is 2 weeks in higher ed time, right? So it's still very fresh for us. We are still learning a lot of different things. And I have been with the law school for approximately 7 years now, but my background originally was just see, I love law so much now, was general higher education. So I'm an instructional designer by profession initially, and have just morphed into all these crazy things, which is delightful and fun. I actually did go to the law school and recently graduated with a Master's of Science in Legal Studies. So 1Ls, I feel you. The challenge of law school is intense, and I am super passionate about cybersecurity and data privacy. So that was my concentration with the law school. You may be wondering why this panel and why these individuals today. We wanted to give you a smattering of different sections in IT. We have a vendor with us today, and you may say like, "Ooh, the enemy is up here with us." No. That is on purpose. I wanted you to hear some of his unique perspectives, because as IT professionals, I believe not only do we engage with vendors, but I think that there are some things they would like us to know as we evaluate and or as we engage. So that is one of the reasons I'm like, Tony, please be up here. We have people in the trenches. You know, as IT directors, sometimes we get stuck in meetings for what feels like 12 hours a day. And we have those that are actually out there, hands-on, doing the things, you know, that we miss or that we would like to do. So I've asked a system admin to be here, give us that perspective. And then, of course, we run the gamut, right, of everything that we do. So with that in mind, feel free, you know, ask us questions as we go along. So the first big topic that I wanted to talk about, help desk, field services, and classroom support. So Corey, starting with you, do you separate out support for faculty, staff, and students? And if so, why?
Not really. So the biggest source of calls for me in terms of like what needs to happen right now is somebody picking up the phone in a classroom and pushing the button that calls me. So it really doesn't matter who it is. It's usually faculty or adjuncts, especially the adjuncts, because they are a revolving crew who do not get used to the classroom equipment until a month or two in of our 3 or 4 month semester. So there's lots of questions there and a lot of running down to the room to show them which button does what. But as far as support goes, if you are in the building and need help with something, it's coming to me and I'm going to help you with it.
Awesome. John, how about your institution?
So we're an interesting shop. We're a distributed IT shop, and we're split between, we've got a main campus IT, and they provide support for students, and we also overlap with them for student support because we're in a building at the very southern end of our campus. So students will come to us, they walk in the door, they've spilled coffee on their laptop, or they've got a crisis. So it's hard to say no to them because they don't necessarily understand the difference between what is local IT, what is the central IT that my student fees fund. So we want to make sure that they have a good experience. So we support students, faculty, and staff. And we also have a number of students that are participating in a clinic, so that's an area where for their professional responsibilities, we help provide support there to ensure they're secure with their clinical activities, journals, anything that they're participating with on a faculty side. So we definitely, our help desk covers classrooms, students, faculty, and staff, so we try to do it all. And we do it with 3.5 FTE, so we're pretty small shop. So.
Awesome. I'm going to jump ahead of you, Tony, very quickly. And at our school, it is actually separated out. We have separate classroom support, and there is a special number for them versus the help desk for faculty, staff. And then the students are actually handled by our library staff. And the rationale behind that was that the student questions would tend to be more along the research side of things, and I believe that is kind of what we see. How do I format this in Word, or how do I, very, very rarely is it my laptop has started burning, what do I do? So for us right now, that model does work, but for faculty and staff, we have centralized IT as well. And so when you call the help desk, you may actually be getting someone from main campus, not necessarily on our campus, and we are geographically separate. So that has been an interesting challenge for us as they get to know our community a lot better and, starting to realize, oh, maybe I should transfer this to someone, and we have field services, level 2, escalation. So it can get a bit complex, but we're learning, and we'll get there. So Tony, how do you provide support out of curiosity?
It's a little bit different. I mean, we're usually tier 2 and tier 3 support. So there's almost always somebody who touches our support person, a customer inbound before we get them at the law school. So usually it's your support department, I would guess, and then bounces over to us. But then we subdivide usually by product. We're a fairly small team, there's about 10 of us right now. And so there's certain people are very good at certain things. So we're doing a lot of routing internally to try to get the person to the person who can do it quickly, right? We also have this real, what I call kind of an accordion model where we are overwhelmed, I shouldn't say, we are challenged support-wise in the month of August and September, and then it gets very quiet October, November, December, and then there's a little bump again in January, and it gets quiet. So we will pivot the whole staff into support during those months that are high, that are peak months, and then we'll pivot back to development and things like that. So I've got a lot of people who are programmers and work on support every year. And that's, in some ways, programmers hate doing that, but it makes them very much better at coding and understanding where the customer is if they've been getting bombarded by, hey, it should do this, not that. And so I think it's a good thing, but it is at times, I think, stressful on the staff. And it makes it stressful in terms of if you have a set of responsibilities related to delivering product at certain dates and times, and now you get pulled off for support for 6 weeks instead of 4, that's a real challenge in there. So there's a lot of bouncing around, daily meetings to kind of coordinate and rearrange and do it up. So.
Awesome, thank you. So I got to ask each of you, if you could pick one thing, like the biggest issue that you see all the time, what would that be?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Student printing.
Student printing. No, that word. Take that down. All right. Student printing. All right.
Student printing is a library problem, and the library has their own IT department. So even though the library is in the building, I never get calls about that.
Shout out to our library brethren.
Yeah. It depends on the time of year. Like, exam software is the most stressful thing we go through every single year.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, what product we've been on. There's something new every exam period. And even if it's not that, it's the 500 students who all of a sudden have decided to notice that their laptop's been running terribly for 3 years. And like, today is the day it needs to be fixed because tomorrow at 9 a.m. is their first exam, and you look at it and it's running 20 toolbars and 10 programs that you've never heard the name of, and there are pop-up ads coming from places that you wouldn't expect. And
But they need their printers.
yeah. Oh man, I don't so many people have uTorrent set to load the second their computer boots. Like, you're on the university network. It's bad. So yeah, I'll go with exam software
All
and
right.
all of the related laptop issues.
Awesome. We do have a section on exams alone, so don't worry. We will get to that. Student printing, all right.
And that's kind of a joke, but probably in all seriousness, classroom connectivity is probably one of our biggest issues. I miss the old days of just a VGA plug-in that was just a one-way push. It just worked. Probably that's one of the biggest challenges, is just dongle hell, for lack of a better term. And we latch them on with little airplane cables in the classrooms, for USB Type-C. But yeah, daisy chaining connectors will go in, and faculty will have 3 different connectors, daisy chain.
Yeah.
So probably just ensuring that they're connecting reliably to AV is one of our challenges.
You don't love Apple introducing a new connection every 2 years?
It's only $70. Come on.
Fair enough.
Made out of the fan club.
Oh my goodness. Tony, what do you see often, or the most?
From our perspective, it's the synchronization. We're often taking feeds of data from multiple places in a law school, so it's the synchronization of that data. So if you're in cases where we're using Active Directory to populate Google, which then is how they log into one of our products, if the data we're getting about enrollment is different than that, we got real problems. So we're doing a lot of work to try and figure out ways to move some tools forward into the law school so they know about it sooner and things like that. But that is where we get overwhelmed and feel a little bit out of control. And so we're trying to patch things up on the back end. So that usually, if we can get that part to work, then we're down to problems we can solve very easily. So I'm sure that's, John, I think you talked about that yesterday. That's just an internal challenge as well.
Yeah.
And it bleeds out to vendors. And so I think, things like LTI with, Canvas, for example, are moving us in directions where we can, hop onto other channels. And Google authentication or Office 365 authentication has made our life a lot easier. So those kind of trends are, hopefully easing up some of that part of the support program.
Yeah. Awesome. I think for us, if I had to choose one thing, I had a different answer prepared yesterday, and I'm going to change it right now. User training. I think user training is one of our biggest challenges, and I do mean that across the board, whether it is for students or faculty and staff. I mean, we do have training sessions that are pretty generic, you know, the latest and greatest of Office 2016, you know, and things like that. But I think because we have, like everyone else, right, you're asked to do a lot more with a lot less, folks are busy. You know, their minds are elsewhere. And so even if we are working with a vendor on, you know, a product we chose and we're super excited about it, I see myself and my colleagues kind of zoning out as we're going through those training sessions that we paid lots of money for, you know, and then you're sitting there a week later going, what does this page do again? And so we're starting to see that, you know, across our campus. So I bring that up. I don't know what the solution is. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be asked to do less. So I think that's something that on our campus we're trying to be a bit more mindful of, especially as we transition to new systems. We are about to move to Microsoft 365, y'all, from Google. So that's going to be a fun one. Awesome. All right, Corey, you started it. You said exams, so we're going to talk about exams. Exam period support is specifically what we had discussed. So before we jump into the latest and greatest and most fun experiences that you have had, how many students again?
520.
And how many students do you have?
550.
550? Okay, we are in the 900 range. And are you free of all the troubles of exam period?
Not at all.
Okay.
We get in the middle. It's not a huge problem for us, but we do have an exam product. It's kind of a lightweight exam product. It doesn't actually, we built that product to get around the lockdown issues and all the other heaviness of some of the other things.
Get out. So, no, I'm kidding. Yeah. Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, that came out of Yale, I think, and they were really struggling to, well, they have a support problem, right? Everybody's laptop got locked down, there were bugs and whatever, so they're like, we're not going to do lockdowns anymore. And there are a few, I don't know, maybe 10 schools that do that sort of thing now. Does anybody else do that? Non-lockdown exams?
Anyone? Non-lockdown exams? Yeah, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. All right. Very cool.
I kept thinking that was going to be the thing of the future, but it has not.
Not,
happened. So
no.
Yeah.
We are passionate about you selecting A on a lockdown computer, so awesome. All right, well, gentlemen, can you tell us what your general game plan is during exam period? You know, do you have loaner, for example, do you have loaner laptops? Do you have extended help desk hours? Do you have extra coffee for your staff? You know, what's your game plan? What's your game plan?
So I think we might be a little unique in how we handle it. So we definitely don't require students to use their laptops.
Okay.
Downloading an exam is not even a commitment to submitting that exam. So we hand out our questions on paper to every single student, no matter how they're actually writing. So when you go into our exam software and download your exams, you're not getting the questions. So even if you had figured out the password, you've got blank questions. So that way, if there is a laptop issue, or if a student just spills coffee on their computer that morning, they can always handwrite in booklets. How effective that is sort of up in the air. A lot of our instructors feel that typing on a laptop lets you put more on the page, but your exam mark is more about the quality of what you get down, not the quantity. So having more words isn't necessarily better. And so to that end, we do not have loaner laptops. We do not have computer labs. If a student wants to borrow a laptop from another student, that's totally fine. But we are not going to walk into an exam and provide support. When the clock for the exam starts, you are on your own until you're done.
Interesting. Thank you. John, how about you guys?
Questions?
Yeah.
Do you just keep a stack of blue books in the front for the proctors?
Yep. The proctors have enough booklets that every single person in the room could use too. It's never come close to actually getting to that point, but yeah, if a student gets halfway through an exam and their computer just completely dies, they switch to handwriting, and after their exam's over, they bring their laptop up, and I do whatever we need to get it up and running and get their written answer out.
So how many students take the exam on a laptop versus Blue Book?
More than 90% write electronically. It's interestingly, I think the international students that we have are the most likely to handwrite. I don't know if it's just that it's easier to write in English than to type in English with the laptops that they've come to our school with, but I definitely see a lot of pickup that way. Almost everybody uses the electronic software.
So up until about a year ago, our registrar's office out of Student Affairs managed exams, so IT had very little to do with exams until software changes and challenges started coming up in one of the tools that we were using, so IT became more involved. And what we found to be pretty successful is within a couple of weeks of the exam cycle, we'll set up extra help desk hours, we'll set up a table in common areas where students are frequently at and offer support. We'll get them coming up with the uTorrent on their laptops and basically just trying to help them clean up their machines. But there's the whole gamut of students. You've got the warriors that are really, on the ball. They're reading every communication from the registrar, and they're most of the cases their laptops are fine. And then you've got those that, we've got a new version of the software I need to download and install. It's the morning of the exam. Okay, I've been here. I'm a 3L. I just don't care anymore. But it's really for us about communication and really trying multiple channels to get to the students and let them know, any changes. We've changed products, and we're hoping to stabilize on that scenario so the students are more familiar with it. But it's really about making them feel comfortable about the tool, making sure they're aware of what's expected. Almost all of our students have laptops. A couple of them have Chromebooks, and we offer an emergency laptop room. So if they have a failure during the exam, they can leave the room, and then we'll help get them sorted out, and then that way they're not disrupted by the mass exodus when time is up by the remainder of the students. They go to either this room or one of other several rooms. We either hand them a laptop, or we've got a room with about 10 laptops that they can go in and use. So that helps them feel a little more comfortable. Some just want to use one of our machines. They don't even want to use their own. They don't trust it. They want to put as much liability on us as they can. They're baby lawyers. But it's really about communication and just being prepared for the fallback. Chad?
On that liability aspect, for the general support, also for exams, is anybody collecting waivers from the students? Either annually or before the exam period?
So we have a custom written agreement that they have to, supposed to read before they download the exam software. It is 4 paragraphs, so if they ignore it, that's kind of on them. I also email it out before every exam period when I let them know that their exams are available for download. It's pretty straightforward. This is optional if you choose to use it. The health of your laptop and anything that results from it is completely on you. We won't support you during an exam, but there's always paper and pen if you choose.
Yeah, we have something similar. It's we call it the exam acknowledgement, and it's electronic, but it's similar. It's we have a disclaimer that if you decide to use the software, that interestingly, you have to contact the software provider for support, but this is what we use, and then they have a checkbox and they acknowledge it, and we have similar language about you can handwrite, you can use a Scantron, but this is how we do exams, basically. They sign or accept that usually towards the beginning of the semester, and it's on our registrar actually has a page where it has that the waiver, I suppose, in a way, but it also has, we have exam videos that we play in the classrooms that give the instructions for the exam, so those are also available should the students wish to watch them before they get into the exam classrooms. And I can get into that a little bit because that's also part of our general game plan, but yeah.
How many of you all have schools that have waivers?
1, 2, 3, few. Okay.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
Got a question. Like, as opposed to having students individually sign waivers, you could probably make it just part of your IT policy in the school itself. Are there other schools that do that as opposed to doing waivers?
A few.
Okay.
Oh, so as opposed to, so the question was, the question is, instead of having like individual waivers, what about including that in your IT policy? And does anyone do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Got a couple.
Cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we did it, totally my opinion, recording, and not the opinion of Loyola Law School, Los Angeles. I believe we did it the way we did because registrar handles exams, not IT. And so it is a software product that they choose, obviously with our knowledge, but that they choose and they interface with the vendor much more than IT interfaces with the vendor. So that waiver actually falls under OTR as opposed to IT. So that's, I think, why it's the way it is for us.
Got it.
Awesome. So our game plan during exams, we do offer extended hours as well. We, our registrar sends out lots of communications ahead of time. Students are encouraged, right, to download a test exam or a sample exam, test their software. Of course, no one really does that. So same story, day of, folks are scrambling. But our policy is once you get to the exam room, exam classroom, IT and or library IT support will be there for 5 minutes. And all that they do is ensure that you could get on the Wi-Fi and download the exam file before the software locks you out. And then after that, you're pretty much on your own. And then 5 minutes before the exam ends, IT shows up again. And if you have any problems uploading or, getting on the Wi-Fi for whatever reason, IT will attempt to assist you, but ultimately you will have to contact the service provider for support. So, yes?
Clarification, we're there for 20 minutes.
Is it 20 minutes? Oh, good call. All right, so 20 minutes ahead.
So it's
Laurent,
your
take
IT, not campus, or not.
It is not main campus IT. We actually have one person from main campus IT, nope, 2 now, who will come out and assist. But it is folks on our campus who are more familiar with the software. So as far as, that's what happens if I turn it on. So we try to have as many of our local support people in the rooms as possible. Speaking of the exam videos, we had issues many years ago of proctors going rogue and just kind of, saying what it is they wanted to say, before the exam. And of course, being future lawyers, the students came back and said, well, Proctor didn't say that in this exam, but they said it in that other exam. And so our registrar was like, we're ending this, we're making exam videos. So if you are a blessed faculty member that has to sit in front of a camera and be recorded, we have a recording of, hello, welcome to your examination. The exam will start in 10 minutes. My name is Professor, insert name here. You are about to take a objective exam. It is hilarious. Now, for some reason, and I'm just going to throw this out there because we find it hilarious. It was one professor that we used for 4 years. Professor went on sabbatical. Our exam software changed. So we had to make new instructions for the professor to read. Since the professor was on sabbatical, our registrar decided, let's switch to a different professor. So we recorded a different professor giving the exam instructions. Biggest feedback we got after that exam period? What happened to Professor X? I was expecting to see Professor X tell me how to take an objective exam. Professor so-and-so is great, but what happened to Professor X? You know what? We'll take that as a win. If their biggest concern was that Professor X was no longer on the exam video, we'll take it. But that's our general approach to exams, which leads me to the spicy question of the day that you may or may not answer. It's up to you. What is the worst thing that you have had happen during an exam period? What did you do? And is there anything you could have done differently? Now, before I force my co-panelists here to answer, let me tell you the worst thing that happened during our exam, and it's not what you think it is. Wi-Fi died across our campus. And it died 10 minutes before exams started. This was several years ago when someone else was running said infrastructure. And they decided to do maintenance 10 minutes before exams started. Of course, students being students had not downloaded their exam files, got to the classroom expecting Wi-Fi to work and be able to download said exam files, and were not able to. I was a minion at that point and did not have the long-winded title that I have now, so I was in the trenches, just kind of watching with wide eyes as things were going down. But I would have to say that was probably the worst thing that happened during exam period on our campus, and I remember the email that went out that included the phrase, if you go to a Starbucks and access their Wi-Fi and download your exam files prior to coming to campus, highly recommended.
Wow.
My goal is to never have that happen again. But yes, that is probably one of the worst things, but not the most recent worst thing. Wink, wink, everyone. But that was pretty bad. So yeah, lesson learned. Don't do maintenance on Wi-Fi, and know who is doing maintenance on your campus, especially during exam period, and put blackout dates. Sorry, end rant. I'm done. All right. Corey,
We did have the Wi-Fi go down once, and but it was during the exam that it went down, so we told everyone to go home and submit their exams, and that was fine.
Nice.
So that was not as bad a crisis. There was one, I'm so reluctant to actually name names. The exam software we used to use had a bug one time where the software would actually crash, and it would stop adding new lines below where the student was on the screen. But if you went back up into your text and hit enter a bunch of times, you could make more space. And the catch was that it wasn't recording anything at that point. So we had an exam where a student submitted 2 paragraphs out of 3 hours. And that was the single worst thing that has ever happened. So we put them in a room and asked if they were willing to rewrite everything, and they said yes. So a very brave student wrote 6 hours of one exam that day.
Get a medal for that.
It was,
Seriously?
yeah, they didn't want to go, like we offered the option to, go home, come back the next day, try again, but they wanted to get it done. Obviously, December of this past year was pretty brutal. So we have our exams a lot earlier than I think most of you do. By the second week of December, we are fully into exams, and same with the third week of April. So we tend to end up as the testing ground for whatever new software has been released. So
Thank you, Canada.
So when we started hearing from our students that their computers were crashing when they got to about 90 minutes to 2 hours into an exam, and we started escalating it up and started hearing from other there's one Canadian law school that writes before we do. So we had a bit of a heads up, but there was still nothing coming out of the actual vendor saying like, watch out, this is a problem, here's maybe how to mitigate it. So we started scrambling to put together our own resources and our own troubleshooting and our own best practices for how to prepare your computer to maybe not crash during your next 5 exams. That was pretty bad.
It was. All right. I'm so sorry, and thank you for being the lead for the rest of us. How about you?
I'm not sure I can top your story, but probably our biggest challenge is with the previous exam software. Watching the canaries in the coal mine like Canada. So December was definitely rough for us. We went through a software change with that previous vendor, and really trying to communicate with students about this change, worrying about the crashing, worrying about a spell check issue where some students could use spell checks, some couldn't. But really, trying to communicate about that, and we saw about 25% of our students in a 2-week period during that time. So that really overwhelmed the IT staff. It was a very stressful, tense time for students, but it wasn't quite like the Wi-Fi going down, but it was definitely a slow motion train going off the rails. The outcome was actually pretty positive because of the proactive effort. The exams were pretty reliable for students, but it was definitely a Herculean effort by the staff to make that happen. So
Awesome.
Hence some of the changes to the new vendor.
Hey, how about that? So I'm totally going off script here. I'm curious, in your opinion, I think all of us in this room, we figure out the rhythm, right, of exams. There's certain things that we just expect to happen, or we just kind of, keep an eye out. With the rhythm that you see, right, for exam periods, is there anything that you would recommend, or is there anything that you have found kind of, what am I trying to ask? Like it's just your go-to. Like, regardless of what happens, this is a good practice to have, or this is something that, new fresh hell in your lap, but this one, this thing is what keeps students calm, keeps you going, keeps, whatever it is.
So I cheat and I bring my dog to work every day. So it started as it's exam time, I'm going to bring my dog to work. He's a golden retriever. I should have given you a picture of him to put up. That was
He is
sloppy.
Adorable. He has a faculty profile on their website.
So he has become the faculty's canine ambassador. He is the only member of staff who actually has his own profile page with his own list of news articles about him. So it's really, really great because he is a solid 5 minutes of distraction while students come to me, and I actually get the time to pull their laptop apart and figure out what's gone wrong. And often I can have their exam uploaded by the time they're looking up from Max. So that has proven immensely useful over the time.
Awesome.
The other thing is I do my best to get exam vendors to not push software updates to our students during our exam times. It doesn't always work. They forget a lot. But if I can get it into their ear that we are in exams now. I know we are the 1% of your clients that are, but you are going to introduce a bug into the exact middle of our exam period when all the students already think that everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, in April it went so wrong when we got an update that started just frying exam uploads silently. So if we can try to keep an even flow during exams, that's been very helpful to us.
So for us, I think what we found to be helpful is probably the last year and a half is student affairs, IT, dean of students, registrar. We get together and meet before exams. So we're talking with proctors, our faculty assistants who are helping to build the exams. So everybody that's involved with the exams, we get together and we work through what the issues are. And then after exams, we have a murder board that we talk about what went wrong, what was, what can we do better, how do we, really to go through it and just deconstruct what went right and what we need to do better for next time. So it's just continuous improvement is really what we're after. But it's getting all the key players in the room. So everybody from a lowly faculty assistant who is, printing out the exam to the dean of students is in the room.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to pick up the pace. I just, this was wonderful, and maybe we need to have a heart-to-heart in the lobby. There's 2 more topics I wanted to cover today because I think they are important. And the next one that we're going to focus on is cloud services. Cloud services, the age-old question. And actually, I'm going to throw this to Tony to start. A lot, as you know, a lot of schools are looking at cloud versus local hosting for the services that we have. What, in your opinion, are things we should look for, the top 3 things that we should look for when engaging a vendor, especially a cloud service vendor?
So, I think of reliability. The things we're hearing here, right? Simplicity of installation, integration. Integration might be the biggest thing. Does it easily integrate with what I'm doing? And if you can bounce off some of these other products out there, Google, Office 365, LTI, if you can provision via LTI, or there's some other easy way to provision, that'll make your life a lot easier. You touched on something, you touched on training. Is it intuitive? Is it, can they train themselves? Is this going to create a support burden for me? Or is a support burden somehow going to be taken on by the tool itself? Or, is that support going to route my direction instead of your direction? So I would look there. You don't want to have to worry about anything in terms of backups or server provisioning or any of those other technical issues, you want to just sidestep all that. We sidestep all that. We push all that to AWS, right? So you can buy all these, those services from our side. And then you have the vendors just doing what they're very good at and things like that. So provisioning, spin up, how long is it going to take? Is this something I can set up in 5 minutes, or is this going to be a 6-week project that involves data coming from 9 different people and data cleanup process and authorizations from who knows where? So we're trying to, we're really working to push that down. Though I think those are the things that I would look at first.
Okay.
Right, and then what are the underpinnings?
Yeah.
Are they trying to do this in their own server room themselves, or are there good, strong providers underneath them, Microsoft, Google, AWS, et cetera, doing the heavy lifting of the data processing and all that, that part of it. So, yeah, that's what I would throw out. So.
Awesome. So as you all know, the age-old question is local versus hosted, right? Just do it all in-house, locally, or put it in the cloud somewhere. To each of you, what would be some strategies to advocate for, let's say, cloud services, actually? I mean, I'm pro-cloud now. I did not used to be, but if you are trying to engage your IT team or even administration to invest in cloud services, what are some of the rationale that is actually for cloud services as opposed to trying to keep everything in-house?
We can't find good people to maintain the internal hardware. We're turning that all off. It's skills that are hard to get. You can buy hardware, you can buy all this stuff, but it's really hard to get and keep skills. And if you do have the skills, the cost is going up year after year. So that was the reason that really drove. Even all of our development. The people used to never do this. They would never put their development machine on the cloud. All our development is in the cloud. We don't even do development local because it's between the flexibility, the cost, the ability to turn it on and off. I bet I have 10 people in the shop. I bet I have 40 development machines that are pre-configured in different ways. We turn them all off, and we turn them on when we need them, so we can be very responsive on the response time. But yeah, that is, you can't do that locally. My team at times gets split all over the place. If they're all here, they're coming through the pipe. You get that pipeline problem. So from my perspective, I don't know that I could run my business today with the pressures that are on it without having everything up in the cloud. Anyway.
Cool.
So it is the only option I have, I feel, at this point. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know.
John?
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, I mean, with the exception of applications that are really highly CPU or highly storage intensive, it's generally cheaper in the cloud. The challenge, though, is getting administrators to look at, I can buy a server for X, but they don't see the ongoing costs that are, kind of unwritten, or that they don't see right away in terms of, who's running the backup? What is the risk of, having somebody with staff turnover, or, who's maintaining that server, who's backing it up? You've got to look at the box every so often. Is it updating? Is it current? Is it patched? What are my security risks? It's much cheaper to get it in the cloud, and I think it's much more secure as well in terms of having people, who know what they're doing, especially with, AWS, Google, Microsoft. But it's, I've got people who come to me that faculty, they've got a project, I need to store, this. This Dell server over here is, it's only $2,000. Let's do that. But it's convincing them that, no, it's more than just the hardware. There's a whole service surrounding that. And making sure that they understand that cost is actually probably less in the cloud. So that's probably the challenge.
So our central IT is willing to act as a sort of hybrid between cloud and local. So none of my servers are bare metal to me. I can log into the VM systems and do whatever I want there. So our web server, our SQL database, everything I rely on to actually keep the faculty running is a VM slice run by our central IT. All of our storage is there. So in that sense, we don't have to really go out to cloud for computing power or for services other than the ones that just, like our exam software is cloud-based. So it's great because it lets us keep all our data central and local. It is a big concern for Canadian schools to keep our data away from you guys.
No offense taken.
No. Because we are very aware of how far it can go once it crosses the border. So we are always on the lookout for when we're choosing a new provider of anything, what are they doing with the names of our students? If they're collecting grade data, really anything. Is it being kept in Canada? Is it going to Europe? Or is it coming down here? And so that is a huge concern anytime we're engaging a cloud service provider. And I think it's one of the reasons why our central IT is so willing to keep the bare metal in place on campus with a full disaster recovery site about 20 kilometers south.
So do they charge you, are they competitive in terms of other cloud services?
I think we're paying about $70 a month for a VM, so it is more expensive than AWS. That is Canadian dollars, though. So I think that's about $50 US.
That's not bad.
There you go. Wow. But it's affordable for sure, and it just takes a lot of the headache out because I know the names and the faces of all of the people who actually run the bare metal. So I can pick up a phone and call someone if something's wrong. It's not like getting into a support queue and checking to see what tier of support we have. I can put a ticket in, I can pick up the phone, I can walk over and talk to somebody if I need to. And so that's a really great service that I don't see us switching to AWS away from to save some money.
Awesome, thank you. I had one section left, but we are
Do you want to
towards
take a
the
question?
end. Yeah.
No, I just want to make a comment
Sure.
on the whole cloud thing. On a more personal level, I still have some older faculty who are still afraid of the cloud.
Yes.
And it's really difficult explaining to them. Virtually everything they're doing already is in the cloud.
Yeah.
Every time they turn on their cell phone, every time they send an email, every time they do everything. The second you say the word cloud,
Yeah.
they clam up, they get scared. And some of them insist, I'm going to keep my files locally on my computer. I say, well, if that computer dies,
Yep.
you've just lost 20 years worth of work. They don't get it.
Yeah.
But I've seen a gradual shift. Everything is going to the cloud, sooner or later, in one way or another, and you can't stop it.
This is true. I actually, with some of our faculty members, very similar, if not the same, arguments, and actually had a chat with one of them, and they're like, I like you, Corinne. You're all right. You're cool. I'm like, thank you. And they're like, but cloud, I don't like cloud. I'm like, well, okay, if you think you like me, imagine 30 people working on this one system that is taking care of your files. Imagine thousands of people, working to make sure that your files will be there the next time your computer crashes. And they're like, oh, they're nerds like you. Like, yes, they are nerds like me, right? But it has been for us one-on-one conversations, with our faculty. And for those that are still super resistant, when their computer crashes, that's usually when they're like, all right, I will use something. So it's not, I personally feel weird advocating for the cloud in such I feel like a fear-based as opposed to a, more educational knowledge-based. But unfortunately, the risk is super high for their work if they lose it, because they're putting it on 50 thumb drives that now they don't know what's on those 50 thumb drives. So I think for me, I just have to learn my campus and try to work with each person as I can.
One of the fears that they have on the other side is security.
Yeah.
One of the analogies I use, okay, so you're living at home. You lock the door. What's to stop some chainsaw massacre clawing through the door and killing you tomorrow morning?
Fear-based.
Well, nothing. That's right.
Yeah.
If somebody really wants to get you,
Yeah.
they're going to get you. something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter where it is, whether it's in virtual space
Yeah.
or in the real world.
I'd just like to have a little bit of a counterpoint.
Sure.
I've got faculty members who do Guantanamo cases,
Yeah.
work on immigration law. They have legitimate concerns. And,
Absolutely.
I got cursed out, actually. So I put them on Adobe Creative Cloud. It's
Oh.
effing cloud. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
I started to actually research it, and I couldn't get the answers that I was looking for to feel confident enough to say that his stuff was safe. You know,
Yep.
read the Glenn Greenwald book about how much Microsoft's bent over backwards to like make themselves accessible. I think for the majority of the people we're talking about, it's all fear-based.
Yep.
But then there are people who have legitimate concerns that their work is exposed. And I think what we can do is I still think they're going to end up on the cloud, but we have to give them that sort of intermediate, like,
Yes.
maybe we have to be experts at PGP or whatever, or figure out how to work with them to secure this stuff, because, if you put it up there, somebody will take it. I'm not saying that it's insecure. I mean, it's way more secure than the, sticky notes with passwords on the bottom sides of keyboards everywhere.
So true.
It's better, it's like having, multiple locks, but I'd say
Yeah.
we do need to not immediately dismiss
Oh, yeah.
across the board.
Thank you for bringing that up, because, as we were talking, my mind was on faculty, and you are right. Our clinics, that is a big concern we have looking at cloud providers, especially in LA right now with our immigration law clinics and other issues that are going around. Like, we are concerned, and especially one of the of course, let me throw this softball out there as we are about to close, but I mean, working with Central IT and trying to have them understand as well, like, we are basically a law firm. We are not just an educational institution that is part of you. Like, we have some very serious security concerns that we need to see the contracts as well, or we need separate contracts, with our vendors. So that's definitely been, part of my job as well, right? Just to advocate for that and to also research and understand, like, hey, what are we getting ourselves into with Microsoft 365?
And it's not like there isn't a precedence for this information
Exactly.
being snatched down and directly.
Exactly.
So.
This is very true. Out of curiosity, we'll keep taking questions until we get kicked out, but out of curiosity, show of hands, would folks be interested in a session next year on security? Like security and policies and okay! Question answered, making a note. Awesome, thank you everyone. Any other questions or topics that you'd like to,
Yeah, just going back to the concept of the really sensitive information
Yeah.
that you're storing. How closely do you scrutinize agreements with elements of your antivirus vendor? Because you have an issue where an antivirus company can basically just sweep all the data out of the system just as part of their sampling process. So certain antivirus vendors are more notable for doing so than others, but
yeah.
yeah.
I can speak to our experience so far, and the answer is I'm not sure, because in our transition to centralizing, working with Central IT, they have an entire security team. And so I want to say it has only been in the last year that I have been working with their security team and, getting on their radar and, I mean, really building personal relationships with our CISO and, getting him to understand, what our concerns are. So they do vet, they do have some very stringent processes for vetting, who we have, and they have switched antivirus providers. But have I personally seen the contracts? No. Does that concern me? Actually, yes. Realistically, will I see those contracts? At this point, probably not, right? But I have the CISO's ear. So as the more I get to know him and the more we get to know each other's systems, I know at least that I have a friend who can advocate for what we need and is starting to understand the differences between our campuses. So
I don't have a better answer than that. Our old AV was local, so it was trend. So as far as I know, if any collection was happening, it was staying on campus, and nothing should have been getting uploaded, but we're talking about moving to System Center. So I have no idea how much Microsoft's collecting. I would really hope there are agreements in place. We've gone so far out of our way Like we held off on the 036 migration until there was a plan in place to host us in Canada. So Microsoft built Canadian data centers, and that is where, like, contractually our data will only live in the Canadian data centers. So right now, like, Microsoft Teams isn't fully in Canada. We're not using Teams yet. So we are very careful about where our data goes, but I have never looked into our antivirus contracts. That is a good question.
Anything else? Yes.
Maybe a question, Tony, more than anything. This would be on pricing, budget negotiation with companies, not necessarily someone like you who's pretty much all in education space, but someone who's booking big contracts with, boutique law firms. We go to them, say, for something like e-discovery, and it seems like everybody off the top, does 10 to 20% for education. I'm kind of curious if you've got a notion of, not to reduce it to a percentage, but where, as an educational institution, if we go to somebody who's got some high-end suite software, something like that, where we say, well, 10 to 20% really doesn't get us close, where we can ask for some more give from them, but where it's not insulting, and they basically put us on a do-not-call list. Do you have a sense of what, that might be, how to work that out?
When I look at stuff, price becomes much more flexible if the volume is there. So if it's one small school, it's kind of hard. But if I have 5 or 8 schools coming to me and say, hey, I really need this, and this is all we got, then I'm willing, they want to get their software out there. They're going to want to get their software into the hands of these future customers. Of course, Microsoft's discount for education is, I remember a lot of the big vendors it was like 90% off, right? And it actually made a market for us with the SharePoint stuff into the law schools. But, so if you can look at it in bigger numbers, so if there's any way you could do some work and say, hey, there's 9 schools in my area that could all benefit from this and do some coordination, that would reduce their cost of sales, potentially reduce their support. I have one contract that all of them are in sync with, that kind of thing. I would always, if there's volume, I'm adjusting price.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the way their costs come in, right? So if I have to, we know how much it costs to write a contract for these different products, and sometimes you wouldn't think it's a lot, but sometimes it's thousands of dollars to put a contract together. You have to run it by the lawyer, you have to spend X hours on it, and so all those costs matter, and that's what I would try.
Last question. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a question, it's just some information I wanted to share since we're all in the IT world.
Yeah.
For those who do not know, if you have wireless microphones that are in the 600 megahertz range, please make sure you're changing them because the FCC has sold that range.
Yes.
Companies like Shure, Sennheiser, they're giving rebates, so you can contact them. And if you want to get a rebate, this is the last month. This June is the last month for a rebate.
Okay.
So just some information I wanted to share.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've been seeing that as well. So thank you for that reminder. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great rest of your conference, and please contact us with any questions.